Hello Vedites and other great people. I'm Vedui 42 and today we will be looking at an AFK base. If you've been following my channel, you probably know that I love to make bases. I make a lot of base concepts of some that are cheesy, some that are not cheesy at all, and some that are sort of in between. I might be in a mountain, underground, in this sea, up on the mountains, inside the mountains. Loop bases, strong walls, traps and all that. This time I wanted to take a look at an AFK concept that is actually going to be built on the sledge turret. Very early in the Alpha 19, once we had the sledge turret, I very quickly identified the sledge turret as probably, and I would argue still, one of the and possibly the best weapon that exists in the game. And I actually captured that in my top 5 weapons of 7 Days to Die. Why? Because it allows you to push something. You can push players, you can push zombies. And why is that interesting? Well, because beyond cheesing or using electricity, it's the only way to actually move zombies from one space to another space. And this is not something that is trivial. It's actually a fundamental change to the game. It's a little bit like having pistons in Minecraft that allow you to push blocks or mobs. And I covered this very early last year, and then I made a pretty cool base that I think myself, the Wizard's Tower, where effectively you had a ring of ascending staircase that went up to the top, and you had a sledge turret at the top that would gently tap, nudge, bash off the zombies, bring them down to the ground where they would have to sometimes rage, but they would have to restart their running, so they would actually end up running all the way up again. And you might be thinking, hey, what's the point of doing that? If you're not killing them, what's the point? Well, it's because the very simple fact of the more they run, the less they're doing something else. And if they're spending all their time running, then they're not spending any time bashing anything or attacking you. So they would effectively be looping, running up, being bashed down, running up, being bashed down. And because it's using the sledge turret, it's not using some weird partial block pathing or something else that is sort of bugs or features that are not quite intended in the game. But the sledge turret is intending to actually accomplish this. And that makes it a zero cheese type of base. Now, while I love actually the Witch's Tower, it was never really intended as an AFK base because, well, you're supposed to be defending it actively because it's not extremely tall. And if you want to make it tall, it becomes a bit more complicated. So instead, I'm going to have the Wizard's Wall, which is going to be an AFK base type of concept. So what we have here is a basic start. The zombies will run up here, and of course they will have to run up here, jump, run up, jump, and then they reach here. Once they reach in front of the first sledge turret, he will bash them off. If they manage to miss him, which happens because it's, as you can see, it's sort of swiveling, so it's not always that it's going to be in the correct position. There's a second one here. Then they'll come over here, and hopefully none of them make it all the way to this place. And that's the basic concept. So let me show you how this works. So I'm going to pause the AI here. I'm going to put in a bunch of strippers. Let's do 25 of them. Barrel strippers. There we go. And I'm going to put myself here so we can see properly. I'm going to be shooting. So they actually start tracking me. And here. Come on. Yes, now they'll be coming. Now this concept works really well. It has 2 weaknesses. One is that zombies actually sort of can make it past here. And what if you don't have it skilled up so you can't have 2 of them? Well, it means that a lot of them eventually will be making pass across here, and then they'll be bashing outside of your wall. But you see here, this is how it works fairly well. It's basically sitting there, well, the sledge turret is sitting there just bashing them off. However, you will see another thing as well. You see he or she made it past, but it actually turned, fortunately. Eventually, like that. And you might think this is perfect. Well, this actual layout has some, actually a couple of problems. One, you see, I end up with a bunch of zombies down here that are bashing. And now I've got like 40 or 50 strippers here, which means that it seems like it's just a few of them. But you will have increasing numbers of zombies that they get pushed down. And then they start bashing, deal some damage like she does, before she decides, fine, I'm not raging, I'm going to run up here. Second thing is because of positioning, it looks like, yes, it's bashing off everything. And actually it is. However, if there was a demolisher, it would have a fairly high likelihood of setting them off eventually, because you notice it's sort of bashing just in that area where a demolisher would be. So you would have to turn this one more, but that would also decrease its effectiveness. So those are two problems. So how do you sort of avoid a lot of the zombies being down here bashing? Well, this is where you actually redo the base. And here you see a slight rebuild. What I've effectively done, I have just extended it out here. And by doing that, I have extended the path. So before, it would basically be up here, get pushed off. Now I've probably more than doubled it because they have to get up here, they have to turn, run this way, and then turn and run this way again. And only then do they risk getting pushed off, which means that I've doubled a little bit more the path. Now you can make this even further if you wanted to, and it really depends on how many concurrent zombies you have. The more you have, the more you probably want to extend it as well. And you can sort of make it kind of intricate as well, because as long as they don't touch, so they won't go across here, as long as you have one air gap, that should be enough for them to keep pathing along the raised platform. But wait, if you're here and enjoy my video, why not leave a like on the video and maybe... Oh, look at this beautiful snow. Perfect. Oh, how nice. And why not subscribe to the channel as well? Oh, actually perfect. I think it's snowing because I'm sort of right next to the snow biome here. Actually, that's really nice. I love that. Does anyone, actually, this is a sidetrack here. Does anyone remember how snow would settle on the ground back in Alpha 13 or something it was? Oh, it was so nice. So even if you were here, the snow would settle on the ground here. You get sort of snow blocks, snow look on top here. Really, really nice. So you get the crunches on as you move around. Anyway. So let me go back here like this. And I'm going to spawn in a bunch of stripper as well. Let's do that. And like that. You'll see they'll come up again. And you'll see they're going to be having a much longer path that they actually have to get up to. So come on here, ladies. I know it's tough to run, I know it's tough, it's tiring and everything, because the longer path you have, the longer it takes for them to reach the sledge turret. If you make that one 10 blocks, it's going to take them a lot shorter time than if you make it 50 blocks. Of course, there's probably some limit to how long you make it. If you make it like 200 blocks, they might not want to go there. So, you know, 20, 30, whatever, 40 might be okay. You just have to sort of feel your way forward. So now they come here. I've changed a little bit how these sledge turrets are positioned, and they're not perfect this way. Again, they still have the potential issue where they could set off a demolisher. Now, for regular zombie, that's not an issue. Oh, I'm joined by him. That's just interesting. And he is basically sitting there because he's really got his AI a little bit in a whack. He's not quite sure where he wants to get, or where he wants to go, rather. And he's sort of like, yeah, let me go over here. So this works pretty well. What I noticed, however, with this is that because of how the sledge turret is being positioned, they could set off demolishers. Now this is made in steel, so it's less of an issue with it destroying things, but eventually it will. Now you notice there's still going to be some that are bashing down here, but because they're spending more time running, it means that they are spending less time bashing down here because there's fewer of them overall. There still will be some, but the more you can avoid them staying, a lot of them down here, it means that you have less damage that you have to repair afterwards. But this is not perfect. And here you have a third iteration. What I've done, I've basically given them a slightly longer path by having a little bit more of the blocks here. And I've been trying to bring them up a little bit so that you have less of likelihood of pushing off the demolisher. Part of the problem with doing this is that as you avoid trying to hit the demolisher in the front, you're also minimizing or reducing the amount of time that the sledge turret has to push any zombie, which means that they are more likely to get across here and get across the second one. So it's not perfect, but it does reduce the demolisher activation a little bit at least. Now, it still has a couple of problems. One, what happens if it gets past here? It'll end up next to the door and it'll bash it, which means it's a kind of a bad AFK base if it's actually bashing its way through the door. Secondly, what if you don't? So I'm relying on, let me do that, show that here. I am relying on intellect and robotics event, which allows me to have 2 deployed active robots at once. If I didn't have this one to the max, I could only have 1, and then you would get the occasional zombie that gets through here. With 2, you still can get the very occasional one that gets through, which means it's not a super good AFK base because you still sort of have to keep an eye on it. So that is the final thing that I want to have a look at, how I can resolve it. So what I've decided to do instead is I'm going to try to drop them down here if any of the zombies actually make it this way. And what we're going to be using is this one. This is the powered hatch. We're going to put one Really not there. Let's turn it around so it's the correct way. One here and one here. That should be enough. And then we're going to enclose it a little. I'm going to enclose it a little bit here, and then we're going to put the second one here. I forgot that it's floating otherwise because of placement, and we're going to do something like this, and I'll show you in just a moment why I'm doing it this way. I'm going to build in something a little bit like this. And why am I doing this? Well, you might be wondering, and you actually be right in wondering. The reason is that we need to block off line of sight a little bit, because we're going to need a way to trigger it that could trigger on other zombies as well. So we're going to do like that, and we're going to have, let's put in a motion sensor. So let's put in a motion sensor there, and then we're going to be connecting everything up. Let's do this. Where is my, if I was a wire tool, I would be over here. Okay, so we're going to be going from the, actually from there, generator bank, over to the motion sensor. We're going to go for the motion sensor down to there, motion sensor down to here, and then we're going to position it so that probably something, even that is actually not a good idea. We probably have to shift it a little bit. Let's remove it. Positioning is really important here. If you position it wrongly, you have an issue, because you can't actually well, you'll be triggering on things that you don't want to be triggering. So let's do that again, and then let's see if we can position it correctly. I basically want to have it so that it only opens up when something is on this one here. So let's do that right in front, and we actually probably might want to do a third one here. Do that like that. Is that correct? Yeah, that's fine. We want to make sure basically it only triggers when there's something in front of the door, because we don't want to have it open sort of willy-nilly when there's something like, let's say, a zombie rounds on the ground here or something. We want to have it right at the correct time. I think that might be all right. That should be all right. And then we're going to block off that area as well, like so. So now, as you can see, the zombies, once they reach up here, and this is the wrong facing, actually a wrong, do that copy rotation, something like this. Okay, if I do something like this, you'll see if it's sort of in front of the door on either side, it will open and open all these ones, and we should be able to test that by, if I go up here and we fall down. Perfect. This is exactly what we want to have. So if any zombie makes it up, don't throw away your weapons, makes it up here, eventually they come up here and they get dropped down. Perfect. That's exactly what we want to have it do. I'm going to be picking up those ones, and I'm going to actually go inside my little cubby hole here just to show that, and we will be doing this amount, and we will be, let's trigger some strippers again. I mean, she looks good. I mean, she's not really a stripper though anymore. She used to be, no longer a stripper. Okay, so let's have a look at what happens to the zombies as they slowly make their way. And if you notice, right, it's already been, what, 5 seconds something, and they've barely made it up here because they're so slow. They're jumping and running up these blocks is really, really slow. And now we're spending even more time, and they've gotten one to like 10 blocks, 15 blocks in all this time. If this was straight, they would have been much further, and then she even fell down. Maybe push off herself a little bit. Let's see this. She's coming down there. Oh, she managed to survive. Well, rather, she managed to not stagger off. It might be hard in those high heels. And finally making up here, and we see what happens with the final when she comes up here, and she decided, oh no, there she is. Now she's going to, oh, damn it. This one, I forgot that it should be triggering on the zombies, not on me. Like that. Right. And I also still have the shotgun that actually will still be shooting at them. And actually, because of that, I can actually reposition that a little bit like this. If you notice, in all this time, only 2 or 3 strippers have actually made their way all the way here, because they have a tendency to just fall off on the way. And that's something that means that they're even less likely to make it to outside of the door. Let's see if we can make one more. Come on, you can do it. Come on, show me that you can do it. I want to see you do. Yes, and there she falls down. And that's exactly what we want. We have them come in. They seem to not really like that, and they'll bash it once, but it doesn't matter, because they'll open, because they're being detected, and it will make them fall down. Perfect. This is exactly what we want. One thing I do want to do though, I want to put in some bars Let's do some iron bars, not centered. Let's throw those ones. The reason I want to have some bars is that I could foresee there being, and see, am I getting one more? I might be. I could foresee there being a vulture that actually makes its way here. And I sort of want to avoid that being the case. There we go. So now we have a really good way. We have sort of like a cage. A bird shouldn't be able to get in there. And even the... Oh, upside down. Come on. Even the regular zombies seem to have big issue coming there. Even without the sledge turret. If you notice, I removed the sledge turret. There's been like 4 of them. So if you didn't want to use the sledge turret, if you wanted to have a super safe... Oh, let's do that. Actually lost touch of me because they're just feral. This would actually be enough as an AFK base. You actually wouldn't need the sledge turrets if you don't want them, because it would work exactly the same way. You would just have more zombies over here, and you see how this works. Very few make it up. The few that do actually end up being dropped down there. Now there is a bit of a problem with having the hatches here, is that the pathing of the zombies get temporarily interrupted when the hatches opens up, which is another reason that I don't necessarily recommend having only this. Having a sledge turret makes it a little bit more efficient without having the zombies recalculate their path. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to be positioning the sledge turrets, sort of one here, and I'm going to have one that is sort of coming here. Probably should be all right. And I'm going to start a Blood Moon Horde. I'm going to have, let's see here, we're going to have game stage 439, which is fairly high, so we should be getting plenty of demolishers. And we probably will be having a bunch of vultures and a lot of radiated, and we're going to have 24 concurrent zombies. And the Blood Moon Horde is coming, and they seem to be arriving from this direction. All right, that makes them run even further. If they were coming from here, it would be a little bit shorter, but this should be working just fine. Let's see what happens. 24 concurrent, which is equivalent to 3 players on default settings. I'm giving them some time to get up here, as you can see, and if you see down there, there is a demolisher. The first one that was ahead, he actually fell down. Second one also fell down. Let's see if the third one, the cop and the radiated and the utility man, can make it. They're sort of pushing each other, and we see, oh, he didn't make it, and he didn't make it either. So 2 of them are down, and you see, oh, he made it. He got pushed, but it didn't quite fall off, and this is what happens because of positioning. Let's see if we can do something. This one, the sledge turret, is looking the wrong way, and probably will be missing. Oh, well, he fell down anyway, so I guess that doesn't matter. So they tend to be all right, but you can never guarantee actually everything being pushed off. Now, you notice here, because the sledge turret is pushing them from the side or from the back, the likelihood of the demolisher being set up is a lot smaller. You still have, as you can see, some zombies down here because they do rage when they get pushed down or drop down. Unavoidable. Having a longer path makes that less of an issue, but again, like I said, you don't want to make it too long because then you have other issues with zombies not wanting to path at all. Alright, looks like we have our first here that will be making their way into the cage here and falling down. The demolisher, you notice here, when these ones open up, the demolisher immediately repathed and said, hey, I don't care about going here. And that's why he's bashing this one. Now he came up here and falling down. And this is something that will be happening if they make it up there. I actually decided to remove this extra block that was there. It might mean that a demolisher potentially could be triggered because it's sort of in the wrong spot potentially, but it might mean that it works a little bit better because the zombies will be down here a little bit longer, whereas before they might actually make it all the way here instead of standing down here. So 2 of them have made it through, and we're now 1 hour in, and only 2 zombies made it all the way in, and both were dropped down by the hatch. You see another demolisher's coming down. Let's see. Yep, we get hit in the back and then get knocked down. No problem, set on fire, but at least he's not exploding. You might be wondering, are you going to get an experience for these ones? And actually you can get some. If you manage to kill a zombie, meaning that the sledge turret does the last hit on the zombie, then you actually will get the kill experience for it. It's not going to be extremely common because while they do some damage, it's actually not a lot. And the higher game state you have more feral, you have more radiated, and of course the radiated will be healing on their own. The feral will not. However, they have a lot of hit points, which means they require something like 10 hits or more, or 15 or 20 or 30 before they actually get killed by the sledge turret. There! Oh, you saw! Perfect! Utility man got killed. I got 413 experience. And there's another one. Ironically, it's also utility man. Another 413 experience. It's interesting that we haven't actually seen any vultures because I specifically put a shotgun turret here. So in case there was a vulture would come down there, they would actually shoot them, which is fine. If we had more vulture, it would actually be even better because then you would have less zombies here. And we're now 2 hours in. We've had a few small handful, 3 or 4, that have made it all the way up and gotten dropped. We haven't had any demolisher actually getting triggered, which is good. It could definitely happen. And it's actually been relatively quiet. 24 zombies is actually not a big issue for a wizard's AFK wall because it works so well. And if you extend it even further, you make a lot more up and down with the hatch drop at the end, couple of sledge turret, or even just one. If you only have one, you will be relying more on the hatch drop at the end, which is okay. It doesn't really hurt that much. It just means that potentially they'll be arriving outside of your door more often. And you do have occasionally, and this is something that I saw just there, cops that are not radiated will take damage, and eventually they will go into their explosion animation and they will explode. Unavoidable when you're using the sledge turret because they deal some damage. Now they shouldn't, if you only use the hatches, actually that should not be an issue because they don't take that much damage from a very small fall here. So while they're running around, let's have a look at some of the blocks here. Now you will be seeing some damage from the zombies bashing things, and this is unavoidable. Any zombie that is raging, and you see here, it's because I have 24 of them. Even with this slightly longer path, you will have a bunch of zombies that are raging because they're just pissed off at falling down. I mean, they're not good losers, they're really sore losers. So you will end up having to do some repairs afterwards. But, you know, even a whole night of this means that it's unlikely that they'll even destroy one block. If they do destroy a block, well, too bad. You just have to replace it with some more concrete or steel, depending on where you build it from. But pretty much any other base builds that you would have, if you had a lot of dart traps, you would have to replace the darts. If you were shooting them yourself, you would have to replace the ammo. So there's always going to be some resources that are going to be in play here. But this is a simple adaptation of the wizard's toolbox. Sledge turrets and combined with the powered hatches are a really good way of building an AFK base. So if ever you get tired of fighting the Horde, well, why not try something like this? It's actually fairly straightforward. But before you do that, make sure you like and subscribe and watch me next time. See you around, AFKer.
Special thanks to the great patrons supporting the channel. If you would like to join the vetted community and support these videos, do follow the Patreon link.